Alright nerds, so here we are with ecology again, and today we're going to look at competition and adaptations. And as you can see, the doctor is very excited because just this once, everybody lives, except they don't. It's called competition. Most things die. Alright, so what's the point? It's very stark. Basically, by this, you'll be able to explain the competition for resources, and you want to describe what an environmental niche is with a couple of examples. I'm not going to give you the examples, by the way. I might, but you want to come up with your own. And you define an adaptation with examples. All right. So here we actually see there's a limited amount of bird food, okay, down here, and all of the cockatoos are fighting for it. They're having a competition, and that's what it is. That's competition. That's where we're at. So, niche, basically an ecological niche. This is the summary one. An ecological niche includes both the organism's physical habitat and how it individually has adapted to life in that habitat. So, basically, the niche for an animal or an organism includes how it responds to the abundance of resources and enemies, predators, etc., and how it affects those. So how does it respond to, so if we're talking about bush rats, how do they respond to the owls that are around? At the same time, how does it maintain not eating too much of the grass so that they've got no food left? All right. So the abiotic and physical environment, they're also part of an animal's niche or an organism's niche because it influences the population. So the abiotic part of the environment is that they affect its resources. So that's part of its niche. It's going to be how the animal responds to that niche. So the description of a niche, when we talk about an organism's niche, we might be including the history of that, so how it's evolved, the habitat, and its place in the food chain. Okay, we'll give an example in a second. So this is really important. According to the competitive exclusion principle, basically you can't have two organisms filling the one niche for too long. Okay, so here we have two Australian animals. You don't need to write this down, so it says there. We've got the crow and the magpie. They both fill the same role. They both do roughly the same thing. So its niche is its role in the environment. That's actually the best way to explain it. So they both like open spaces. They both tend to open spaces like paddocks with tall trees. They both eat the same stuff, and you actually see their their beaks are the same shape. Now, magpies are a bit more territorial, and this is why they're a bit more they're a bit more successful than crows are. Like, they're a bit more aggressive. So they fill the same sort of niche. Okay, like they both eat food off the ground. They're both roughly scavengers. And yeah, so they fill the same niche. They do the same role. This is why you very rarely see the two of them hanging out together, just living around. All right. Another good example of this is I don't have any pictures for this one. Is the possum in Australia and the opossum in America, or North America. Very distantly related, look similar but not identical. One is a marsupial, one is a placental mammal. Very, very separated apart, but they both fill the same niche. They kind of look the same, except possums are cute, and opossums, the American ones, they're scary. They look awful, but not the point. They fill the same niche. Okay, so competition, what is it? Basically, most animals, or most organisms for that matter, die and don't reproduce. Okay, so their genes don't pass on to the next generations. This basically is because there are not enough resources to survive. Aside from the fact that a lot of them are resources for something else, in other words, something is trying to eat it, they don't get enough food. Most animals in the wild live borderline starvation, and that's the way it works. So food and water resources, shelter, this sort of stuff. So if there's not enough, they won't live. All right. So this leads to competition for resources within individuals in a community. Within a species and between species. Okay. So within species, what do we have? Basically, Limited resources control the size of a population. That's cool. Like that we need that one. Between species, if multiple species fill a similar niche, if multiple species fill a similar niche, the resources they will compete for resources within that niche. And as we said earlier, they won't survive for very long. So if they're only found in one environment, it can lead to the extinction of a particular species, and that's very interesting. So adaptation, basically, an adaptation is alteration to the biochemistry, structure, or behavior of an organism that makes it better suited to its environment, or changes in the environment. For example, you might have a catastrophic change. All of the trees above a certain height die, or sorry, below a certain, all the leaves below a certain height die, which means only the really tall animals are able to get the leaves. Okay, all of a sudden, tallness becomes a useful adaptation. Now, our man Chucky D, Charles Darwin, the greatest biologist who ever lived, he basically, when he went to South America, he went to a place called the Galapagos Islands, and he discovered evolution. Now, it didn't happen just there, there was a lot more to it than that. But a very striking thing he found was that on each island, these finches, which were all very closely related, and presumably came from one individual population, had massive adaptations that separated them all, and actually meant that they were all able to fill environmental niches in each separate island. Okay, so all your tree finches, ground finches, in other words, live on the tree, live on the ground. Okay, you've got a bunch of them that have these giant crushing beaks that are used for seeds and stuff like that. Then you've got these ones over here. Okay, so it's vegetarian tree finch. The parrot-like beak means that it eats fruit. You've got these grasping ones, like these are for eating insects, and you tell you've even got different sizes. So one will eat large insects, the other eats small insects. The woodpecker finch, its beak has a little groove in it, which means it's able to pick up branches and hold them in there and dig out. Okay, if these guys try to do it, there's not the grip there that falls off. Your warbler finch, it digs inside little tree knots for honey. This probing beak here is really good for getting into cacti, and all of these different adaptations means they filled a certain niche. It's fair to assume that there was at once a basic finch that might have had a beak like this. This is pretty awesome. So there's a basic finch and different members of its family that all looked fairly similar over hundreds of thousands of years. They've landed on these different islands, and small adaptations have led to them becoming more and more successful. And if your beak is that little bit more pointy, a little bit better for probing into a cactus, you had food, the other guys didn't. That meant you had kids. Anyway, finches are rad. So, see you in class.